This is brought to you by Cricket 8. They are a new player in the game trying to educate fans on what is really happening in cricket. We have a partnership with them where we host live watch-alongs, do podcasts, and write articles. If you want to know what is really happening with our game, visit cricket8.com. If you make any content, Minvo Pro is the tool for you. Take your long format content and cut it and slice it for social media. This AI-inspired weapon will turn your one piece of work into so many clips. Try Minvo.pro now. Welcome to the Scoreboard. Morning, everyone. I am Jared Kimber, and we're here to go through the last couple of games. Although, if you're a Uganda cricket fan, you may not want me to go through your game. That was trying, wasn't it? It was that period when were they 5 wickets down, where it felt like they batted for hours without making a run. It really, and when they did hit a run, it just kind of spooned up in the air. Really not their best efforts, and I think there's a couple of teams in Africa who didn't qualify who must have been looking at that and going, what have we done here? But Uganda have got games to come back. Although, having said that, they've got a lot of games in Guyana. So, you know, the over or under on them scoring 100 runs in one of those games is probably, not particularly high at the moment. Anyway, let us get on with the scoreboard part of the show. I'm a bit pressed for time today, so I would say that the best chance of us of asking any questions, if you want to at the end, is going to be a super chat. I'm sorry, but it's just a time thing. Although I was just on Wagon Wheel, so there were questions everywhere. We talked about this a little bit yesterday about how these two teams line up. Since the last World Cup, South Africa actually hasn't been playing a lot of good T20 cricket. I think we know that their team, when fully assembled, is better than what we are looking at here. I don't think they're a great power play batting side. Sorry, let me separate that. I don't think they're a great power play batting side. And I do worry about this whole idea of sort of conserving themselves until they can smash at the end, especially the way that T20 is played at the moment. And I also think that their bowling should be a lot better. But, on the wickets that help seam, they can bring an extra quick bowler in here. And then when they get to the West Indies and it starts to spin, they'll bring in Shamsi. And Shamsi's got to find some form again. And they should take more new ball wickets as well. But on paper, they don't look particularly good. And on paper, Sri Lanka look a lot better. However, Sri Lanka, their batting is very thin. You can see here the only point of the game of which they are, there's no point where they're really dominating with the bat. They're bowled very good with the power play, but at the moment, they're kind of changing that. Instead of having Madhushanka or a really good new ball bowler, they're going with Angelo Matthews. Their spinners haven't played together enough. Tikshana and Hasaranga, they should fix this, and Patharana should fix this. I don't think they need Tushara as well. I would pick an extra standard seamer, probably Madhushanka, and I would bowl Madhushanka for 3 overs here, and I would bowl Patharana for 3 overs here, and try and win the game that way. But that's not exactly how they're going about it at the moment. So on this particular game that we just saw, none of this matters. Because this was one of the worst wickets we've ever seen. The poor Cricinfo person who said that he didn't think the wicket was that bad. It actually he was wrong at the time, and it got a lot worse. So, so the combination of those two things didn't go particularly well. But the only reason they didn't lose more wickets here is because they could not get an edge. They could not get close enough to ball to actually get any bat on it. This period here, when Noia came on, obviously he completely changed everything. And then there was what was this? Angelo Matthews hit a couple of sixes. Did someone else hit a six? Did Shanaka hit a six as well? And that was it. It was really, really hard to score any runs. Matthews ended up at a run a ball. There you go. You got Shanaka at, 9 off 10. It was bad for everyone. It was a wicket that, for those who didn't see it, it had pace and bounce for a little while. But sometimes when you bowled the ball in the exact same length, it reacted like a tennis ball. So no two bounces were the same. There was sideways movement off the seam, and occasionally the ball kept low. And it seemed to hold in the pitch for spinners as well. There was nothing friendly there at all. Anrit Noia, and we'll get to him in a moment, got his wickets. I didn't even think they needed Maharaj. Interesting that Rabada probably, although I do think he got played and missed that quite a bit, but I didn't think Marco Janssen or Rabada bowled particularly well, but none of this matters in that game. So we could see here that Unrick was going, more back of a length into the wicket, which made a lot of sense. Interesting against the left-handers. He bowled a little bit fuller. But I just wanted to have a look at his clips here. So this is the first wicket. And that was actually, I thought off the bat, he might have got away with that. You can see that it just stops in the wicket. I don't know how well that comes across to everyone. But as it bounces, it probably just stops a little bit. And so when he flicks it, he gets it a little bit higher than he wanted. But that was one of the more normal ones. And then you've got this sort of whole host of him just slamming the ball into the pitch and, and going straight up in the air. Another one that was flicked again. Let's see if this one does a similar thing. This one was just a bit full. I think the majority, and this is one of those things when you look back at these, the majority of the best balls that he bowled probably were just plays and misses. There was a particular over where it just didn't look like anyone was going to get anywhere near him. Why is Marco Janssen bowling in this one? Oh, this is just the end of the innings, yeah. And this was another, and so then this was the fourth wicket, which was another pull shot, hook shot that went away. But the majority of the balls were, let me find this. Yeah, were more or less this. It was whacked into the wicket, and then they would stop or they would fire through. So there was a great Hawkeye shot of them at one stage where you could see the balls skidding through or bouncing up. And I just don't know how you're supposed to be able to handle those two things happening so ridiculously. If you look back to the Lord's Test, both teams just bowled bouncers the whole time. It was a very similar kind of wicket. Anyway, this is Nortje's true values in phases. It's incredible to watch a bowler like this and then just remember that he went at 83 runs per ball in the last IPL. But not always a good new ball bowler, but he's sensational in that middle period. 2 runs and over better than what is expected, and he's taking wickets at a really good rate. That's when I really like Unrick Nortje the best, and he can be a better death bowler. But his coach said beforehand that he thought he was back in form, and I think that we certainly saw him look like he was back in that kind of form. However, I don't know how many people there are on this video at the moment. Let's say there's 1,000 people in this video. There's a good percentage of you that would have bowled well on this wicket. Right? That's not to take away from Unrick. I did think he looked better, and I think he looked better than the other bowlers. And it's been a while since I've seen him look better than the other bowlers. But my God, he could not have got a better wicket for his comeback. This was an incredible chase. I think the wicket was harder when South Africa batted than it was when Sri Lanka batted. And the main difference was that it suited the South African bowlers a lot more. And on top of that, it's just easy to chase 77 runs. Even if the wicket gets worse when you're chasing 77 runs, you just have to get to around 50 and then a couple of things go your way and you're going to get there. And so, very interesting that they went with Sri Lanka went with Angelo Matthews and Shanaka. I think if they knew what that wicket was going to be like, trying to think who's in their squad, but a taller, faster seamer is probably your best bet on that particular pitch. But they didn't know it was going to be that bad, obviously. So they went with 2 skiddier bowlers. Tashara got 1 wicket, of course. And Patharana was still quite hard to play on this pitch. But that's what you needed, people just whacking the ball into the surface. And it's harder for those guys when they're slinging to do that. And then they got a couple of wickets with the leg spin as well. But this was a torturous chase, which really told us how bad this wicket was. Reza Hendricks looked like he came out to play. He hit a 4 and was out almost straight away. Everyone else, even Heinrich Klaassen, really did push the ball around. And it was right towards the end that Heinrich decided to go after Hasaranga. But that happens quite often in those low chases, just because you can't keep putting pressure on the opposition. But shall we get to this? 3 overs, 1 for 6 from Dasan Shanaka. If you want to know how bad a wicket is, have a look at his figures. He goes at about 9 runs and over in T20 cricket. That's not internationals. That's including domestic T20 cricket. obviously he can swing the ball around a little bit at times, and he's a handy medium pacer and everything. If he's got figures like this, something is massively wrong with the surface. You see, as I said before, Tashara not completely helped by this. I think they left Tikshana too late. I think he should have come on earlier. In fact, Patharan and Tikshana are two guys I would have brought on a little bit earlier. And Hasaranga did get the wickets, so he might feel justified in that. But I think Tikshana looked very, very hard to play for me on that kind of a surface. And he really didn't have much of an impact. So if you come here, this is absolutely hilarious. So you've got Tashara bowling 3 overs in the power play. That is, I think, where their mistake is. I know why they gave him a second over, but that over there should have been Patharana or Tikshana. And then they brought on, they went with Matthews and Shanaka at the same time. I don't think you needed both of them on. I think I would have brought, again, another chance to have Tikshana on earlier here. And also you would have had a good look at, what's his name? At Patharana earlier on as well. It may not have mattered. And this is the thing, you don't want to pick on this, but they did actually have a chance of defending 77, and they weren't quite perfect with the way that they went about their bowling. And so that did play a bit of a part in it. But at the same time, you're defending 77. You know what I mean? What a stupid game of cricket. And hopefully they fix that wicket all the way through. Here's Afghanistan. I really wonder. I was watching this. I've actually now rewatched this game twice for some reason. I don't always do double watching of a game like this, but for some reason I've now seen it twice. But and part of the reason I watched it again was to see how much the wicket played a part in this bit at the end. It was such a brilliant start. I know it was Guyana, but Uganda really weren't handling it very well. I think they should have scored. Probably 250, but maybe that's pushing it at Guyana, but they probably should have scored 200 to 220. So it was disappointing after that start. And this isn't too bad. I think if you're going at 11 runs and over and you're still going at 9.5 runs and over here and losing a couple of wickets and keeping it there, but they'll be very disappointed with this. I don't think anyone watched that game and thought that Uganda had a great death bowling. But remember, it is Guyana, and I wondered if the ball just got a little bit soft and it was harder to get away. But it's disappointing for Afghanistan, I think that. Obviously, the two openers were the ones who went crazy here, and you've got a strike rate of 152 and 168. I thought both of them batted really, really well. They just looked a class above Uganda. I mean, the amount of times that's the main note I have, really. We could see that Zadran really anchored the innings, whereas Gurbaz got on top for a long period. So they both went about it in very different ways. And that was Zadran's third quickest innings ever. Let's have a look. Ireland, okay, it's not too bad. There wasn't so many runs in that one. UAE, Ireland. So most of his best runs have come against Ireland and the UAE when it comes to strike rates. And you got India and Sri Lanka and India over here. I think that's one of the issues with Zadran. If he can stay in long enough, he can still play catch up. But I do think they have an issue with him at sometimes. It does take him a while to get going in the way that he bats. But I guess the best teams, I should say, which is a bit of an issue. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bowlers here who clearly struggled a lot. But, well, how about this? Ridiculous figures, right? I think all things considered, I'm trying to remember what overs he bowled now. Look, I think he maybe got away with it a little bit, but, Masaba is clearly a decent bowler for them and has done quite well. His record in the lower levels is really, really good. How it translates to this level, we don't know. But you look at him so far, and he doesn't always bowl, so his numbers are a little bit deceiving. But when he bowls on a wicket that is helping him, he clearly has very, very good numbers. So he's got 33 wickets in 37 innings, but he's played 77 matches. So he doesn't always bowl. But when he does bowl, he's got an economy of under 6 and an average of 16. Obviously, that's going to translate very differently at this level. But you can see here how good he's bowled there. So anyone who can manage to do that on a day when it looked like your team was going to go for a couple of hundred is done very, very well. And then you've got Cosmas as well, who is certainly someone, sorry, I'm just trying to bring up his numbers as well. Certainly someone who, again, maybe it helps what he does. A wicket like this. There are a lot of bowlers who can bowl on these slow and low wickets and be very good. But he's 22. He's played in 24 T20 games. He's got 29 wickets. So he's a regular striker and, again, has ridiculous records at that lower level, which is a lot playing against some pretty ordinary African batting lineups at times, right, in that area. But this is a good start. And considering if these two don't have these days, it really is, a huge total. So they did very well there until they had to come out and bat. As I said before, I can't believe it was only like that period, but it did feel like they were 5 down for an absolute lifetime. They've got some batters who waft and just sort of keep their bat outside the line, and they're not really even trying to smash the ball anywhere. And they've got other batters who probably stay a little bit too leg side of the ball and struggle with the pace. That was the issue in here. That mini partnership really wasn't all that rock solid or anything. And then when it got to the tail, there was almost nothing left there, and it fell apart so quickly. It's hard to take any positives from the way that they batted here. Other than, I don't know, it could have been worse. And it was Guyana, but yeah, it was pretty bad. Look, I thought, no, that's not the guy I wanted. I thought Robertson, was it Robertson? No, Rizat Ali Shah. So he was the guy I think did well in the middle. I thought he looked okay. It looked like he had slightly more time than some of the other players. It didn't look like he had a great amount of shots or anything like that. Robinson Aboya, was he the guy that batted at 7? I think he is, isn't he? Where is this game? Robertson Aboya batted at 7. Yeah, I mean, he faced 25 balls. I thought he could have gone out any number of his first 10 balls. So I think Rizat Ali Shah was the guy that, for me, looked like there was some batting there. But it is worth remembering that, their 2 openers who've made runs for them before faced 6 balls combined. Their first drop faced a single ball. And then I think it was the number 6 also was a second ball duck, right? So there was, and their captain made a golden duck. So there was a lot of guys who just didn't get in. So from that perspective, I would like to see a lot more before I throw them completely under the bus. But I was asked by a friend, and I've seen a little bit of them batting. I was asked by a friend if any of them would make over 40 in this game, and I said no. They barely made over 40 as a team. So they kind of played roughly the way that I thought they were going to. Fazal Haq did very, very well taking his wickets. Also, I like the fact that he took wickets at the top and then came back later and bowled very well. Naveen, in fact, both the seamers I thought did well, and Azmatullah. I actually think Azmatullah was desperate to get the ball, thinking he'd be able to pick up a couple of wickets here, and managed to somehow bowl in that period where they couldn't get any wickets. But interesting how they used him a little bit differently than how we've seen him used for other sides in the IPL and so forth. But here is, this is Ronak. So he's hit the 4, and the next ball, you can just see he's just late on this. It's a beautiful ball. It swings back, and it beats him, but he is late on it. There's no doubt about that. Again, late on the ball. So there's 2 of the top order players, both being beaten by good in-swinging balls from left armers, but it's the pace that bothered me a little bit. Pace again, right? This one, I think that's actually a slow ball, isn't it? Which is really, really good bowling. So we've had three guys beaten by pace, one guy beaten by lack of pace. And that was what I was saying there. They've got a couple of guys who just kind of leave their bat out and aren't even really playing, very, very big shots outside the line. Um, and some of this is the tail, of course, as well by this stage. I think these last two wickets are probably guys that are down the order a little bit. But, if they don't make the majority of their runs in their top four, based on what we saw today, I think they're really going to struggle going ahead. And we can see that, this looks like proper chasing wickets to me. I really like this. It's kind of everywhere. But I like that he bowled over the wicket. He bowled around the wicket. He bowled full. He bowled back of a length. He bowled slower balls. I thought it was a really good effort from him, the way that he's bowled. And we can see in T20 internationals, he probably hasn't been as good as they would like in the power play so far. True wickets at par. True economy's fine. And then he's been quite economical at the death without taking wickets. Not a huge issue there. I think you would take that. This is a decent bowler overall. But he's probably still a couple of years away from being consistently, that top level of bowler that they would like him to be. Let's have a look at the game from later. This is a remarkable shape from England, just to show you how ridiculous this is. The batting power play, they're 61% better than an average team in that period. And you can see the bowling power play, just of recent times, they've been doing really, really well there as also. If we separate this out, their death bowling has been an issue for a very long time, which is kind of hilarious because Sam Curran fixed it in that last World Cup and he's kind of gone. And their batting at the death, I thought was interesting as well. Maybe this is a throwback because they don't now have the really great long batting tails that they use, batting lineups that they used to have. And so if they're still playing as, going as hard as anything at the top and pushing through that at the middle, perhaps, they've got some players who are trying to make runs for them at the end, but aren't that good. They're just holding out in the middle overs. If these two things, though, in this tournament, I think could be very, very important to them. And we come over to Scotland. Scotland, for a long time, have been very good a batting side, and then it hasn't quite worked as well with the ball. But you can see, outside of death bowling here, this is not too bad. I think Scotland would be pretty happy with this. They're a plus batting side all the way through. And we've seen that when it needs to hold up against certainly some teams. I think they still struggle a lot with the subcontinental spinners, the high-end kind of spinners. But I think they're very good at the sort of the more Western kind of good level of spinners. Pace doesn't bother them all that much. They've got the players to be able to do that. They've got a lot of hitting potential. So in some ways, they remind me a little bit of the USA, but with maybe a more solid batting lineup. And then new ball bowling, as you would expect from a team that is from swingy conditions, has not been an issue. Mark Watt is a genius. I give him all the credit for this, but they are very clever with the way that they use their bowlers here. They just don't have a great death bowling lineup. Their batting is slightly more attacking than Ireland all the way through. Maybe not always quite as deep as Ireland, and they have better spinners than Ireland. But they're very similar kind of side, not just because they're from the same regions, although that is one reason why they're probably quite similar. But they've been playing some really good cricket over the last couple of years. This is clearly, especially against England, a step up. If they can't get breakthroughs early on with their bowling against England's batting, it can get very, very messy very quickly. And even though England has not been doing great at the death, Scotland don't want to get to a situation where they don't have a few wickets there. That would be their main concern. And also, they can't allow England to take early wickets in that way. That will be a big issue with them. And then we've got Mr. George Munsey, who this is his shots versus spin in the last little while. This is the sweep overall. So you can see just what a huge percentage of his shots come from the sweep. And for a long period of time, that was the reverse sweep. Teams have got a lot cleverer against Muns of over, when I must have worked with them, in 2018, 2019? 2019, I think it was. when I worked with them, teams were still using a lot of spin early on. Teams now don't do that as much, and they make him play seam bowling. He can play seam bowling and hit it. I mean, he's such a powerful hitter of the ball. I don't know if associate cricket's ever had a player that can consistently hit as hard as he does. But you can, early on in his innings, you can cramp him up, and they will bowl around that rib area to him, which is quite regular. And it can get him out. He really just wants to free his arms and swing across the line. I remember he played in a practice game against Durham, where one of the quick bowlers, they were bowling at his ribs and keeping him, and then someone bowled a sort of a length ball outside of stump, and he, not at Durham, at Durban, sorry, and he smacked it out of the park. Just an incredible hit, and all the Durban players were like, "Oh, wow, this guy's legit." But yeah, that would be an issue, and also, I don't think he's as brutal against the spin when he plays it outside the power play, just because his big advantage is he can go down the ground, he can conventionally sweep, he can slog sweep, and he can reverse sweep. That's very hard to map a field out against him in a normal situation. But when you do get to a position like this where you're in the power play and you can have 5 fielders out, you can then cover all those boundaries. So it's up to him to back himself to hit sixes. And if he hasn't been hitting sixes already, I think he's the sort of player that when he has a very good start at the top, he will hit sixes whenever he wants. He's a fascinating player. And I really enjoyed talking to him as a cricketer and the way he thought about his cricket. But I thought we had Nepal, Netherlands. Oh, we might be missing that one. As well. We might be missing the team maps there. Is this their team maps? I don't know if I can zoom in on that. Can I? And have a look at Nepal, Netherlands. I reckon I'm getting a message from Varun or Moku. Someone's missed a slide on me. I'll tell you what, we might come back to that if we can whip it in. I know Varun's gone away. See if I've got any chats. What time is it? Yeah, because we finished that reasonably early. We'll see if the boys can fix that in the back, and I'll take a couple of I'll take a couple of questions. So I'll have a quick break here, and then I'll be back with questions from the room, and hopefully just a slither of Netherlands, Nepal. This is brought to you by Cricket 8. They are a new player in the game trying to educate fans on what is really happening in cricket. We have a partnership with them where we host live watch-alongs, do podcasts, and write articles. If you want to know what is really happening with our game, visit cricket8.com. If you make any content, Minvo Pro is the tool for you. Take your long format content and cut it and slice it for social media. This AI-inspired weapon will turn your one piece of work into so many clips. Try Minvo.pro now. All right, we've got some comments. Let me get rid of the scoreboard for a moment and bring up your comments. And then he says, why am I even existing? Hard to say. Raul says, initial impressions on Steve Smith's commentary. I thought he was really good. I haven't listened to any of his commentary. I've been, quite often I watch a feed that doesn't have commentary on it. And, on occasion I will be listening to the radio as well, just because I can usually see what the TV is saying. Sometimes I've had the TV commentary on, but whatever reason, the games that I've watched, and I don't even know which one Steve Smith's commentating on, I haven't listened to him yet. So, I will keep an ear out to see how he goes. Harsh says, ICC did a really bad job in marketing the T20 World Cup. These horror pitches aren't helping either. Nothing for the batters and shitty outfield. Yeah, there'll be a few pitches that will help, but we've never had a high-scoring T20 World Cup, right? That is a normal thing. ICC, I don't know. I'm not in America, so I don't know how they're marketed over there. I was shocked that many of my friends didn't know there was a World Cup coming up. Or had started in some cases when I was sending them messages about things. So I would have to say it hasn't been marketed brilliantly. Welcome to cricket. Daniel says, West Indies net run rate is already poor. Yeah, and that's not the game that you want to do it on. I don't know. I don't know if it's anything that we need to massively concern ourselves with, because I don't know how the rest of the tournament the rest of the group stage is going to go. If they beat New Zealand and Afghanistan, we don't need to worry about their net run rate. But this looks like a tight group of 3. I still think New Zealand and West Indies are better than Afghanistan. But because of Afghanistan's bowling attack, especially on these kinds of surfaces, you can get yourself in some real trouble against them. So it could come back to bite the West Indies. There's no doubt about that. But there was good bowling from Papua New Guinea, and it was a helpful surface. And I think the bigger issue was, of course, not the batting, but the bowling, and not just trying to bowl them out. If they weren't trying to bowl them out, which I didn't feel they were, that is where that issue lies. Gabrielle says, will this be the friendliest World Cup ever for bowlers with these pitches? If so, who do you think might emerge as the bowler with the best single World Cup figures ever? Look, Gabrielle, I mean, I can't imagine that the New York pitch will continue to be as shit as it was. I can't imagine that. We've got a few more games in Guyana, so that's certainly going to be friendly. If you had a look at the video we made before, I talked about the fact, this would have been a couple of weeks ago on the main channel during the IPL. We don't have high-scoring World Cups. We never have. If the World Cup was a competition, it would be the lowest-scoring competition of all the major T20 tournaments by a long distance. It's the Bangladesh Premier League of style of scoring, right? And so with that, I don't know what the final tally is going to be, because Dallas certainly looks like it's got some runs. St. Lucia should have a lot of runs. I don't know what's going to happen in Trinidad. Are they playing Florida as well in the US? I'm trying to remember where all the different games are off the top of my head. So there's a few wickets we don't know about. I know we've seen the worst of the New York wicket. Surely it can't be that bad again, he says with hope in his heart. It's hard to tell you who will have the best figures, because these are very different wickets. So we've had Dustin Shanakar, Anrik Nortje, Karaiki from Papua New Guinea. We've had Mehran Khan from Oman. You know, really different kinds of bowlers in different kinds of pitches having success at different times. So it would be impossible for me to tell you. I kind of feel like Tikshana is that bowler I really am fascinated about on this one. Mujib could be another one as well, although he didn't bowl as well in this first game as I thought he could have. But those kinds of bowlers where they're hard to get away, they bowl very, very straight, they move the ball a little bit in both directions, and if the pitch holds up a little bit at all, they can be really dangerous. Could be the sort that have some success. But most of the spinners, I think, as it gets to the back end of this tournament, should have a pretty good tournament. I'd certainly be looking at that. Cyber Junkie says, if both Jadeja and Akshar are part of playing 11, who should bat at 7 and 8? That's not how you think about batting. Oh, wait. It helps if I actually show this. That's not how you think about T20 batting lineups. I would never kind of even worry about that. I would be thinking, should Akshar be playing earlier to maximize the spin, and should Jadeja be batting later to maximize the last 4 overs? Would be the way I'd be thinking about those sorts of things. Yeah, I think that's fair. Big something. The problem is more the dog slow outfield in New York, in my opinion. That's not the problem. The problem was actually hitting the ball in this last game. If the outfield was a problem, they would have just, and the pitch was fine, they would have just started hitting sixes. The pitch was inconsistent and temperamental. It was 4 different wickets in one. But the outfield is also a fair chance of that. It's clearly, I mean, I've never seen a ground that is more likely that you're going to hit 6s or 2s on than 4s, right? Like, that's not a normal ground. So certainly an issue with that. Harsh says, associates aren't any good in ODI. That's not really true, but okay. But do decent in T20. And there are barely 4 to 5 competitive teams in ODI. Do you think ODI will be scraped in the future? Yes, I mean, associates are good in ODI. Associates would be terrible in Test cricket. They're moderately successful at times in ODI cricket, and they're going to be slightly more successful in T20 cricket, because the further the game goes, the more that you are tested, and that just makes sense. ODI cricket isn't going to be scrapped because of associate cricket or anything else. ODI cricket is going to be scrapped because it is the third wheel, It's the least profitable at the moment. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's not the least profitable. It's slightly more profitable than Test cricket right now. But it will become less profitable when the broadcasters start asking for the major World Cups to be T20 World Cups and the secondary World Cups to be one-dayers, which broadcasters have already started to ask for, and they will continue to ask for that. But that is what they are going to want. The World Cup might still make enough money to keep ODIs around, but where we will lose ODIs will be bilateral. Then there will be a discussion in the next 8 to 12 years of whether we should even still have an ODI World Cup in a situation where most teams don't play ODI cricket all that much. And we're already starting to see that. Australia, England, there's another team, was it Pakistan? No, there's another team that didn't play many ODI games. That's going to happen more and more. We did a whole podcast on whether this might be the last 50 over World Cup already. And that's the successful part of ODI cricket. So what happens in all the layers below that? And I do think it is a big issue coming up. And, I've talked to people in the game. There are some people who do think ODI cricket is dead. And there are other people who are like, it's a hard thing to kill because it's still making money. So the T20 World Cup, and this is a bad T20 World Cup. This T20 World Cup will actually help ODI cricket because it won't make anywhere near the amount of money or attention that the last 50 over World Cup did. However, I know this, I'm pretty sure this is true, that the broadcasters asked for this T20 World Cup to be swapped with the next T20 World Cup because they wanted to have a really successful T20 World Cup next time in a better time zone, and then they could move on the ODI World Cup, which they aren't as interested in going forward. That's where we are. It's a really hard question to answer this harsh. But yeah, ODI cricket is the most susceptible. I was writing this in 2007, 2008 and being told I was absolutely wrong. And here we are 15, 16 years later and we're there. Doesn't mean it's going to disappear though, right? But it is the one that is the hardest to actually market anymore. It's the one that doesn't work for bilaterals. So when you say that in your next question is, Test cricket may survive ODI, over ODI due to legacy. It won't be legacy. Test cricket is absolutely brilliant for streaming platforms and cable TV because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of constant audience coming back time after time again. ODI cricket does not have that. T20 franchise leagues do have that. The reason it is purely about the money. It's not about the legacy at this stage. Test cricket over the last 7, 8 years has had a renaissance, right? The social media attention of Test matches, the way it excites newspapers and websites and blogs and YouTubers and all this sort of stuff. ODI cricket doesn't do any of that. All right, you can have a great game of ODI cricket, and it can just disappear. And T20 cricket has the exact same thing, but the next night there is another game, and the next night there's another game. Then there's a double header, then there's another game. You can't do that with ODI cricket. You can't build up on the audience in the same way. So Test cricket actually has a huge advantage in modern life, right? And T20 cricket has a huge advantage in modern life. One-day cricket can't be played day after day because it would tire out the players. And also, there's another league already doing that. That is where the issue really is. The smaller countries with Test cricket is a separate issue, and that might be a problem going ahead. But the major countries make a lot of money out of Test cricket at the moment. They're not looking at getting rid of Test cricket, right? Was it England, India, or Australia, India just decided to always play each other in 5 Test series? They're adding games, right? So I do think those things are just changing quite dramatically. So it's always about the money. You always have to follow the money with any of these sorts of things. And when we started making Death of a Gentleman, which is about whether Test cricket is dying, we talked to the TV executives and they said to us, and this is one reason we were so confident in making the movie, that it wasn't a business case. They said to us, Test cricket is a brilliant product for cable TV. And they went through all the reasons why it worked really, really well for them. And then adding on to that, streaming becomes a thing. Test cricket's even better for streaming. Streaming platforms want to be able to say that for 5 days in a row, you're going to come back to their streaming platform and you're going to watch 2 to 7 hours of content. every day. They can market that. They can manage that. They can advertise that. They can work out your algorithms and everything. It's a magnificent format of that. As most live sports works that way. One-day cricket is still stuck in the old cricket method, right? And it doesn't work as well. And audiences are turning away from it. There is a really key dedicated 50-over audience that still exists. There are no specialist ODI writers or bloggers or podcasters or anything like that out there. And the reason is pretty simple. It doesn't really have that audience that really cares enough to follow it. So it doesn't create an audience. It doesn't really buzz on social media the way it should. It gets more viewers than a test match, but they're scattered over a way that doesn't help as much as a test match viewers do. Every single way that you look at it, it's really struggling into the future. There you go. I don't know why we're talking about that on this show, but we just did. Anyway, a big thanks to everyone who was in the comments and asking again. That's it for me today. Just the 2-hour-long shows today. We'll be back, of course, if anything random happens in Nepal, Namibia, or no, Nepal, Netherlands, England, Scotland. God, there's so many teams in this World Cup. If anything random happens in one of those games, or there's an upset or whatever, we'll come back. But if not, we'll be back for the scoreboard again tomorrow. It'll be a little bit later tomorrow. Oh no, it'll be about the same time actually. It'll be around 2 p.m. Tomorrow as well. But thank you to everyone for coming on board, and we will see you again mañana. If you need your pitch changed, well, NordVPN can doctor any surface to a new location so that your IP address is set for you to win. Want to watch a game on a free stream in another hemisphere? Give NordVPN the ball. Or if you just want to watch a clip on social media that a cricket board won't allow, promote NordVPN to pinch hit. So if you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Protect your computer like a bowler protects the boundaries in the death overs with nordvpn.com/Kimber